Next up, we have Dirk, journalist with lots of experience in interviews and documentary making, who will have a short Q&A session with the authors, Asghar, Jameel, who just presented the Islamic Labour Code, and Iftikhar, Ahmad. Dirk, Jameel, and Iftikhar, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Jameel, for your in-depth, if I may say so, introduction to the topic. And it's clear to a layperson like me that there's a lot to learn still, and to do a lot of reading to catch up with my lack of knowledge. But then for all those who are lay people in our audience, I'd like to run through the most basic things once more with you and Iftikhar. Welcome, Iftikhar, also. Maybe I can start from you, Iftikhar. What prompted you, as the first co-author of this project, to start the enterprise?
Thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Jameel and Fiona. Well, as Jameel gave a bit of an idea, it started when I was at Cornell, from 2009 to 11, and I had a background in labor rights. I was working with the government before, so it just when I was there, and when you start looking at the situation of labor rights elsewhere in the world, and then when you start comparing it with the situation in all these countries, especially the countries of the global South.
Because you are the specialist in comparing labor law between countries.
Yes, and I was focusing on comparative labor relations, comparative labor law there. So actually the idea came over there that we need to look at also the how does religion impact the situation of labor rights in a country, and then whether the religion is actually used in lawmaking as well, or rather only it is only the culture which is impacting the rights of people. So yes, it all started there, but then yes, you start talking about and building it over.
You were already an avid reader of Quran, and did you then leaf through to really look for clauses that you could find, or verses that you could find, that were relating to labor law? Is it that the systematic way you started?
Well, it works like this: when you get when you are looking for things, then you start reading a scripture with that thing in mind, and then you start highlighting every other page. Okay, yes, this. I mean, obviously, as Jameel also said, and it was explained in the video as well. I mean, Quran and Hadith, they are not the labor courts. I mean, we don't claim them to be labor courts. They are supposed to guide us about life and death, and all that is in between as well. So we use that knowledge to in our field. This is what we did here as well. I mean, if you are looking for those verses or the sayings of the Prophet, which are specifically on labor rights, you would find only a handful.
And then to get the relationship between the two of you straight, also, did you then look for a sparring partner in your close circle and stumbled over Jameel? You said, I need to discuss things with you. Is that how you got your intellectual pleasure?
Well, once you're working on a work like this, which is going on in your life, I mean, when you start a work like this, which you feel that this is what you need to be doing anyway, despite having a job that is taking your time, but then you start discussing it with the people who would like to do similar work, and then you talk to the people you are doing work at office or in the family, and I mean, all the time, everywhere. And then you find those people who would like to go on with this. Yes, talking over a dinner table is easy. Going through thousands of pages of hadith or labor law is it takes more time and effort. So yes, in this way you find people who would like to do his work as well. So in this way, yes, we kept discussing, and then at the end we were able to go ahead.
And then
So
just to add, Dirk, I think one thing, meaning just for the sake of your question, I think you prompted the right thing, because when I was working in Middle East Africa, whichever new country, and I was part of quite a lot of many new countries set up from my company side. So wherever I used to go, my first source was ask Iftikhar. Do we know, okay, what are the laws in DRC? What are the laws in Libya? How can we do this thing? So I think, and then we used to look back and say, what is the situation? Okay, you went to set up in that country. What are the problems you see? So country after country after country, we see the problems, and then we say, okay, then what can be done? But yes, the journey started both way, exactly.
Okay.
Meaning I had a need, and yeah.
So actually, this Islamic Labour Code is the fruit of your cooperation.
Yes, I mean this is a definite answer. This is a cooperative work. It is a collaborative work, and then yes, it also depends on the feedback. For example, in the second edition, we improved it a lot, adding more sources depending on the feedback from users as well. Yes.
All right, wonderful. So in that sense, it's a collective effort. But for whom is it meant then? For all those your sparring partners, the people you talk to, or did you find out that there is a great need for such a thing as an Islamic Labour Code, because there is a void?
Well, as explained by Jameel as well as in the video, the work essentially focuses on the governments of all Muslim countries who, whether they claim in their constitution or not that Islam is the state religion or Islam is this sole source of lawmaking. Yes, I mean, essentially we wanted to focus obviously on those countries, because if a country is claiming in the constitution and we wanted to show it to them that here's your claim and here's the work, so use it to protect rather than deprive people of their rights. Because generally what has been done is that the scriptures and the sayings of the Prophet have been misquoted to deprive people of their rights. So this was the first thing. Secondly, yes, it is also for those enterprises as well as those organizations which are working in different countries, and especially in these countries, 57 countries, where they can talk to the governments to improve their labor rights, and referring to this that what they are saying is not something new. This is not something coming from the global north or somewhere. It has been there in the religion all this time. Third, actually, what we have in mind is the user in the global north, whose view of the religion is shaped by the global media. And this is not only that the global media is showing a negative view of our religion, Islam. It's also the doings of different groups like Taliban and all these kind of groups who have deprived people of their rights in the name of religion. So what our work tries to do is to show that religion protects and promotes workers' rights, and this is based on the sources of Islam, between the sayings of the Prophet and the verses of the Quran. We are not quoting any scholar. We are going back more than 1,000 years back to see what is happening there.
You were mentioning a few things, which I would like to bring back to one concrete example. The Gulf region as one of your main target countries, and the criticism of northern or innocence among northern audiences, northern hemisphere audiences, about Islamic labor law. Now, does the treatment of migrant workers during the building of Qatar stadiums has anything to do with your initiative? Maybe Jameel?
I think it's not really, we didn't plan it like that, but I think the timing somehow worked, because we the first, let's say the edition that we published is in 2020, and then and that's exactly the time. We studied also these countries. To be honest, I was exactly in 12, 13, 14, was heavily traveling to Qatar and managing Qatar from my other side of the business. So I knew that, okay, what is happening locally. So not exactly as a driver of that, okay, World Cup and all of those, But I think it started, yes, and I think when the timing it worked, we really hope that this can be used. And this is what I meant when I was quoting the example of multilateral organizations, those are driving the change in these Muslim countries. I think this is a very solid source for them, that if you put this argument on the table, at least in front of a Muslim government, country government, it's very difficult to at least deny. And the challenge is, I think, as Iftikhar quoted a moment ago, people were misquoting, and it's not one or two places. In many countries, we have seen it due to our experience and also coming from those countries, that it's abused. It's really like one example that I just quoted on the women participation in the labor force. This is a topic and nothing to do with religion, but you will find it if you follow the countries a little bit back. This was a problem in many countries in the recent years, that they were not allowing females to participate. So yeah, it has nothing to exactly do the trigger as a Qatar World Cup, but I think GCC is the key focus, as they claim that Islam is the source of legislation. I think this work can help them a lot.
So you hold that the special legal attention directed towards countries which have an Islamic constitution is necessary, still necessary.
Particularly those 14 countries which claim, and they have already in their constitutions captured. So this is what we want them. Okay, as you say that, now is the time to do it. I think this is what we are trying to steer them. That okay, let's say the same question. Somebody asked me that okay, in presence of 200 ILO conventions, why we need a labor code, Islamic labor code? Actually, as we said, the work is for Muslim country governments. So we are giving them one more reason. Okay, you want to follow ILO conventions? Very good, please do that. But if you need one more reason to convince yourself for a change, here is a reason which is not contradicting with ILO or any global standard. It's actually telling you it's the right thing to do. Please do it.
So the Islamic Labour Code should be used as a source of inspiration for governments in particular. Is that it?
Absolutely.
Yes, it is a source of inspiration, but what actually we try to do under the Islamic Labour Code is, as the video also said, we have turned the moral suasions into a legal document. Not many of us would be concerned what is happening in the afterlife. This is what all religions focus, afterlife. But then it is the duty of the state to convert that afterlife thing and create legislation so that people follow what is being asked of them. Only then things change. I mean, we are not coming up with something new. People already knew it. I mean, it was part of the Quran. It was part of the sayings of the Prophet. It is just that we have tried to form it in the form of a legal document, which means that, like every legislation which gives you rights and responsibility, it also imposes the fines that if you're not complying. So yes, it is no longer relevant only for the afterlife, that if I do this, I'll be treated good in the afterlife. No, it will happen here as well.
It's the here and now.
Yeah, here and now.
And it can be realized as long as you do your homework, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah.
And you provided them the book to do the homework from.
Yes, we did our effort to give them a source so that they can look into it, and they can at least they know this is what we aim, that at least the governments as well as individuals as well as the companies, they know that this is what the religion says. At least they cannot use religion to deprive people of rights. Religion should be used to rather protect people rather than depriving of their rights. This is what we believe.
Half of these people are women. Yes, and Jameel was speaking about the gender issue and the right of women to be, at least not, there is no prohibition in Quran saying that women cannot be employed or should not be employed. No. There is no word about that at all. But equality is stressed very much. So, what is the need for women in Muslim countries or countries which have a Muslim constitution or base their law system on the Quran. What is in it for them, positively stated?
Well, the
Jameel?
first thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing that our labor code offers them, that it follows the Quranic injunction that whoever does the good deed, they will be rewarded equally. So by providing, it is the responsibility of the state to provide a reasonable environment for females to work in. Obviously, if the state is not educating women, then yes, they will not be able to be part of the labor force. If the state is not providing safe transportation facilities for women, yes, it will not be possible for. So it is not only linked with the labor code, but also with the whole setup that needs to improve. And even when they improve this, then there are certain conditions in the labor legislation. Well, those conditions are not only in these countries, but elsewhere as well in the global south, that there will be certain conditions. For example, women can't work after 8 p.m. It is still part of many countries of the global south. So these kind of conditions, which are seemingly aiming to protect women, they are actually depriving them of their rights. So this is what we are trying to show to the governments, that religion is rather supportive of this, because we also see it in the early history. Women were doing all kinds of work, and they were involved in all activities in the labor market. It was not prohibited. It was not prohibited for them. They were doing all the stuff. So they should be able to do it now.
Are you
And just to add on, exactly on that. So meaning, if you see in the countries like Pakistan, where the female labor force participation is low, it's not because of religion. It's because of those issues that Iftikhar just highlighted. Because if you go into some other countries, like in Central Asia, the Muslim countries, you would see that number going like to 70%, which is, to be honest, even higher than US and UK. And in East Asia, like in Malaysia, Indonesia, you would find it like a better participation rate as compared to Pakistan and some of those. So I think it's that all of those issues that Iftikhar highlighted, it is linking with the religion. And I know sometimes this narrative is built in the countries using religion in past, but we are clear that it's not religion. It is actually different. Even in Qatar and UAE and some of these countries, the female labor force participation recently drastically improved. Like it's a very good level. But whatever was happening, we know that all these different conditions led to this abuse of the situation.
Okay, now very practically, how to use or promote the use of your Islamic Labour Code amongst those who feel attracted to or are religiously inspired, or want to look for a source of inspiration. How to get there? How to get to this Islamic Labour Code? If you're a woman in Libya or in Pakistan, for that matter.
Well, one way is that the Islamic Labour Code is, as Jameel also showed, and the video also indicated at the end, it's available online. It's an open access source. So we wanted to make sure that the work is available so that people can use it, and and there are a couple of reasons for quoting the sayings of the Prophet as well as the Quranic verses in actual language as well, so that people can look at the actual sayings of the Prophet and see whether we are and give proper reference to all what we are using in the Islamic Labour Code, so that they can also confirm it in their own books that are there in their own countries, as well as use this work to develop the ideas further. Obviously, every country, every place would have different problems, and maybe they would like to focus on some specific topics. But then what we can do now is that basic work is already done. Yes, it can, every country can do more work on it to suit the needs that they have.
So it's a work in progress, that's for sure. And if people would want to comment, would come up with suggestions, where to drop them?
Well, the Islamic Labour Code website also has an option where the users can comment and they can drop us the recommendations and their feedback there, and then we would love to have the feedback and then improve this work further, hopefully in the coming months and years.
Wonderful. A very blunt question to round it up. Who financed the making of and finances the maintenance of the Islamic Labour Code?
Jameel, would you like to go ahead, or do you want me to?
I think maybe you start and then I can add. I think it's good. As a Center for Labor Research Director, as you indicated, I think it's a good question for you to answer.
As we explained, the idea started in 2010, and then we have been working on it for more than 10 years now. So it already shows that it is not a project that has time constraints. That's there for our lives. So once you're working on a project like this, it becomes part of you. So the making and the upkeep, which means the publishing, printing, and website, is financed by the Center for Labour Research. While the Center for Labour Research works as the Global Labour Law Office of the WageIndicator Foundation, a part of its annual budget is financed by the family-based funding, which focuses more on the promotion of labor rights in Pakistan and elsewhere from the religion's perspective. What does our religion say about labor rights? So this work is financed by that funding. This is what I have to say.
Wow.
Jameel, would you like to add
Jameel?
more?
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly, it's meaning we had that. First of all, it was our own time in these years, and then when we reached the stage in 2020, we felt, okay, we need to allocate some of that, and then I think we looked to ourselves and our family, and in that way. So I think it took us a bit of a time, but it was not difficult to convince to allocate some of the funding from the family towards this project.
Wonderful initiative. Thank you very much for your contributions, and I wish you all Godspeed and success in the continued development of your project.
Thank you so much, Dirk. I think it's really, really helpful.
Many thanks, Dirk.
Give the word back to you, Flora.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for this really nice Q&A session, and we have another Q&A session, but now also with the audience. We already have 3 questions in the chat. So, and since we're not so many, I would like to actually ask if those that have to pose the question in the chat can pose it themselves to the author. So, Tasmina, you had the first question, so maybe you would like to ask your question. If she's there. Well, in any case, then I'm going to ask Tasmina's question. If she's not there. So Tasmina asking the question, if you guys can give 1 or 2 examples from the Quran and the Sunnah on gender discrimination.
I can take it, and if you please feel free to add it. As I was mentioning in the topic when we were going through that, to be honest, the examples are many. I'll quote few now, and it's quite in detail captured in the Labour Code as well. Meaning, coming back again on the same example, let's say take Shifa bint Abdullah. She when you read the Islamic history and when you go into that one, she is some of those people who was multi-talented person. Meaning, she was the early teacher in Islamic state at that point in time. If you see that, her name was appear again and again with the different references. Also, she is one of those market inspector appointed in Medina. And Medina is the capital of the Islamic State at that point in time. And just imagine what type of a market it was. And she was the one who had the responsibility to ensure the enforcement of the laws at that point in time in that market. Similar is I quoted the example of Samra bint Nahik in Makkah. She was also a market inspector. Another one is Rafaida radiallahu anha. She was a doctor who, in the life of Holy Prophet, used to treat the wounded, injured patients in Masjid an-Nabawi, which is the sort of the office of Holy Prophet, as well as the mosque of Holy Prophet in today's city of Medina as well. So she used to come, meaning whenever there was a patient, Holy Prophet used to ask his companion, call Rufaida radiallahu anha. So she was an early doctor in Islamic state, which we find it. And I think I can go on and on. There are many. The wife of Holy Prophet, Aisha radiallahu anha, her example is known to everybody. She led army. She and so on and so forth. So I think, Iftikhar, if there's anything else you want to add.
When we look at the scriptures, we always start with this objective, whether it is prohibited. So no, we did not find anything, any prohibition, neither in the Quran nor in Sunnah, of prohibiting women from joining the labor force anywhere. This is the most important. And then we have a short verse in Quran which says, "And your God does not forget what He has to say." So, so this is what I have to say. That no, if it is not prohibited in Quran, no. So we don't need to go further than finding where they were told to go join the labor market. It is not prohibited. So let's go ahead, do it.
Thanks a lot. Francesco, you also have a very interesting question, I think. Please add your question yourself.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this very interesting webinar. I was lurking for the Excel sheet from which I was as part of the question. But anyway, so the question is connected to the audience of the report. So of course it is directed towards governments because they're the one that are enforcing labor codes. But my brief experience so far working with, or sort of being part of a team of recommending HR policies to companies, they of course look for universal-based HR policies because they're concerned with, trying to increase productivity, both labor force and the company. And so the kind of practices they ask is universal-based, so Western model and so forth. So best practices of HR. So my question was whether you have any thoughts, or if you encountered through your research or stumble upon how this sort of code could be applied by companies somehow. And of course, there's a problem of translating that because companies can't really enforce the labor codes, but they can sort of informally integrate it in the way they designed policies. And then I can share how I was started recommending, and not directly to the company, but to my team, to my team leader. But I was curious to know your thoughts on this. Let me know if it's not clear, if it's clear.
No, I think this is a great question, actually, and maybe Iftikhar, I'll take it because I come from the same background, and then, to be honest, my interest of this topic always started like that, with the questions like these. And I can tell you, Iftikhar knows it very well. First time I came across the problem, and I was based in Saudi at that point in time, when I called him and asked this question, I said, did your research find that one? And that was, if you have somebody you hired recently and person is not performing, and you need to either now manage the performance, and if that is failing, to take out, because the manager had posed me when I recommended the manager that process has failed, we need to let this person go and move on, because we have spent a reasonable time of giving him all of that. He said this will be unfair to terminate somebody, and this will be jeopardizing his income, so we should not do that, we should just keep it. So it was that religion context. And then I asked Iftikhar, I said, okay, how Islam sees the managing the performance of the poor performer. And then it was one question. And then we looked and we found an example that, okay, Umar Farooq radiallahu anhu said that if somebody is not fit for the job and you keep the person in the job, actually you are violating the law, because and this is quite clearly given in the many sources. So for HR, translating the work, to be honest, towards HR, we felt that there's a bigger problem at the country level to address the legislation. In terms of interest, since we published the work, the most interest we received was from the HR managers of the companies. They wanted to see how this can help them, how they can shape it. Yes, we did not heavily focus ourselves to translate this to a policy type of a manual and help people, because again, it's an inspiration and it gives the background and reference coming from the labor code. We believe that will be a much more right way to approach it. But you're absolutely right. This is an area we can look into that one. Most of the people, those contact us, ask us questions. Many of the sessions that like these that I've did are with the organizations, speaking to their leadership teams and speaking to their HR teams and answering their questions. So you're absolutely right that there is a line for that.
I mean, I was just that was good to know. Thanks. It was this thing of if I may, how I was approaching it, and maybe it may be interest for the conversation we're having. So when I was asked by my team leader to look for best practices for HR practices, of course comes the question that it always has to be adapted to the context, not only national but cultural context. So I don't know if the audience is familiar here with the Hofstede cultural framework, which is the fact of realizing that every country has some sort of cultural or social, let's say, sentiment. And so I'll just boil down the question. For example, when looking at best practices and adapting to what are the socially or cultural values, for example, Pakistan, it tends to culturally be highly in collectivism. So there's this idea that there's more reliance on, a sense of identity that is connected to the group rather than, for example, the US or Singapore that is very individualistic. And so, for example, when I was looking through literature, specifically to the context of collectivism, I found out in my ignorance, but I found out this idea of Quam, which, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, it says Quam is the sense of belonging to an extended family and the sense of loyalty. So, for example, ideas like this that are not really in the code, could they be used as inspiration for HR policies that leverage on the fact of, having more generous, for example, family support policies for the employees, So that's sort of something that I thought was interesting sharing.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
I see that Genevieve has to leave, and she had one very important, I think, question. I don't know, Genevieve, would you have 5 minutes to to pose your question and listen to it, or would you be okay with listening to the recording afterwards? Okay, great. Then in any case, I think it's an important question that she posed, so I'm going to ask it on her behalf. Genevieve asked how the Islamic Labour Code addresses issues around women's ability to leave the home for work without their husband's permission.
It's a very interesting question. Islam, I know there are a couple of sayings of the Prophet that are quoted generally about a woman leaving the household and consulting with her husband about it. But then we also know that women were very active in the participation in the markets and everywhere. So it is, we need to differentiate between something that is maybe culture of a specific an area and what is more the part of a religion. A woman working is or going to the labor market and doing work. Generally, whenever there are two people involved, and they would always talk about it, whether I want to do the work as a full-time person. And then they would talk about it. We, at least in our research, we don't find it as a prohibitive factor which determines a woman's labor force participation. It is that kind of thing that generally people would talk about. Okay, yes, we are working, then how are we going to manage our household? Only to this extent. At least we would not treat it as a source of non-inclusion of women in the labor market. This is what I know at this moment, but then yes, we can look into it more and then respond better.
Thanks a lot, Iftikhar. I also note that Francesco would most likely like to discuss further with you guys on new ideas. So Francesca, I would like to invite you to get in touch with Iftikhar and Jameel through the contact form, so you guys can discuss more.
Thank you.
And I think also, as Iftikhar and Jameel said, this is a work in process and progress. So it's a continuous work that will be updated when there's time and they see fit. So if you have feedback or any ideas, get in touch with them. And I'm sure that they'll be happy to discuss. I am very conscious of people's time, and it's about time that we close the webinar. If there's any more questions from the audience now, a burning question that you would like to ask, please do so now. I'll take one more, and otherwise we'll say goodbye for today. And Sten, go ahead. A burning question.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very for this very impressive work. I was wondering, how did you secure that what you are writing is in line with the international labor standards? Did you somehow align this or discuss this with the ILO in the process of developing it? Second, I think this is, of course, great to have this document, but to avoid that it would not be only some labor law lawyers in companies or in governments who would be using it. I know that from the trade union side, there's a huge need of this kind of documents, but of course they have to be more accessible and readable than such a big, heavy book. You know, it could be more thematic or something like that, because we very often see that the trade unions, they are in deficit of arguments exactly on these issues. We have seen that in a number of countries. So that would be very helpful if have some or less a popular version of this document, if possible.
Thank you, Stan. Yes, you posed a very relevant question. Did we look at the ILO standards? At times, it's just by luck that you are involved in different works, and then it helps you build on those. For example, with WageIndicator, under WageIndicator, we work on the Labor Rights Index, where we compare labor legislation in more than 100 countries, actually 135 countries, with the international labor standards. So call it luck or something else. For the last 10 years, I've been involved in that work. So we are exposed to the international labor standards, and we keep reviewing labor legislation in countries on the basis of that. So in that way, we were able to, although we have said it in the book that we are not, our focus is not to give the color, the new color to the Islamic teachings, but yes, they are, the way we look at it, they are in line with the international labor standards, the first thing. Secondly, yes, I do agree with you that a shorter version is needed. Well, by the way, the first part of the book, that is the shorter version. The second part of the book actually talks about an actual labor code. So the first part of the book, yes, that can be used by the trade unionists yes, yeah, but you're right. We need to have shorter versions as well. Thank you very much for saying that.
Thanks a lot, Sten, for your interesting question. And Jirki is also asking a relevant question in terms of how can we take this work further, also in cooperation with the global unions and the ILO. I think it's fantastic that there's interest from the unions in this work. It also shows again the importance of having doing this study. And I think it's worth a discussion with I saw that somebody from Industrial is here. So to actually have a discussion with the global unions and perhaps the ILO on how to take this further. I'm sure that Iftikhar and Jameel have some ideas, but it'd be good to discuss that also with the unions. Yeah, definitely. Is that something, Stan, for example, that you can take up together, or shall we set up a meeting like that? And Yuki?
I don't know, but surely if we think together, there's a lot of people in here who have different references and contacts, and if we brainstorm, surely we could develop some ideas together.
No, this will be great, exactly, because I tell you, one of the sessions that I did early on, one of the person was the activist, and then promoting the unionization in Pakistan, and he posed me a good question. He said, I'm glad that you brought this work, because 30 years ago we were asked not to unionize, somebody using religion and say, oh, no, it's not allowed. And I'm glad that you brought this work, that we have the now evidence and some clear guidelines, because we have a chapter dedicated to collective bargaining and unionization. So you're absolutely right. I think that in general, if there will be availability, would love to understand and then collaborate. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think that's a great note to end this webinar on. Let's be in touch on that and see how we can make it happen. Then I'm sure that you know how to reach us. So let's see how we can have that discussion. I would like to thank Jameel, Iftikhar, and Dirk a lot for this very interesting and also short and snappy introduction of your hard work on the Islamic Labour Code. Thanks everyone for being here and participating also so actively. That's very nice. I'm wishing you all a very nice rest of your day or evening or morning, and hope to see you soon as well at another WageIndicator webinar. And for those who celebrate, happy holidays as well in the coming days. Thank you.
Bye-bye.